Things just took a shocking turn as following what was an absolutely heartbreaking game 3 of the series against the Yankees. We have some brand new updates that have dropped, revealing some very interesting information ahead of tonight's game against, of course, Cam Schlittler. But one of these updates in particular has massive implications as it pertains to recent rumors, reports, and wild speculation surrounding tonight's starter after it being widely broadcasted that tonight was a bullpen game. Things have just taken an interesting turn. I'm going to break that down as well as a few other comments from a bunch of people following yesterday night's game. John Schneider, some players, and Louis Verlin, who gave up the home run to Aaron Judge. A ton to go over. You're going to want to stay tuned until the end of the video because some of those comments are, I guess, hilarious to a degree, but also just a little bit ridiculous. But before we get to that all, folks, if you're a part of the percentage, you aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for Daily J's content. Yes, yesterday was a horrible loss, but 2 more games in hand, basically. Like, you have to win tonight. If you win tonight, you move on. But even if you lose tonight, you have 1 more game. However, you have to take care of business tonight. But again, if you're enjoying the videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button, folks. A lot to go over today. Now, obviously, the Jays are in a good spot. Like, objectively, they're in a fine spot. Now, the momentum has absolutely shifted. You're going up against Cam Schlittler, who destroyed the Boston Red Sox, went over 8 innings, 12 Ks, crushed them. The Jays are a different beast, right? They are a very good team. And the big question mark, all the eyes are on the bullpen tomorrow. And John Schneider came out and said following yesterday night's game that the Blue Jays will talk through their pitching plans for today and likely tell us today. He says everyone will be available. So, and bear with me here because we have another update. So essentially, John Schneider, everyone in the bullpen's available. So no matter what happened yesterday, obviously we saw a bunch of people pitch. We saw Louis Verlin, we saw Brendan Little, we saw Tommy Nance, we saw Mason Flaherty, we saw a bunch of people, Braden Fisher, no Jeff Hoffman, no Sir Anthony Dominguez. We also saw Yariel Rodriguez. All of those guys are going to be available. However, he leaves some, ambiguity here to who is going to be starting and what their plans are. And folks, there's been some rumblings lately. I believe Ben Nicholson Smith has talked about it. And there's just been some rumblings in general about the Blue Jays potentially either A, using a guy like Kevin Gausman on short rest, B, putting someone on the IL, maybe Phantom IL, say Tommy Nance, his name has been brought up a little bit, say put him on the Phantom IL or, he's hurting. And then you call up Chris Bassett for today's game. And this is where things have taken quite the interesting turn. Now, this hasn't been reported and saying that it's going to happen, but there's been some rumors out there, some in the grapevine saying that, okay, what they could do is, again, put someone on the IL, could be Justin Brule, right? And then you call up Chris Bassett to potentially start this game, especially given the fact that they used, their entire bullpen almost in yesterday's game. Or there's some rumblings about using Kevin Gausman on short rest. But I think what we can say is the fact that he won't announce a starter leans to the fact that I don't think the Jays are just going to roll over in this game as it pertains to it being a bullpen game. And everyone was talking about it being a bullpen game. The broadcast talking about it yesterday. Dan Shulman, Buck Martinez. I don't think that's going to for sure be the case. Now, the most obvious outcome could be Eric Lauer, and then you throw, piggybacking with Louis Verlin, you figure it out from there. But folks, you have Kevin Gausman hasn't pitched in a few days. You probably want him to not pitch on short rest, right? You obviously had Trey Savage as well, but you're also not going to really, I don't think, want to pitch him on super short rest. But I think something might be brewing here. Now, whether that's an IL thing, whether that's, bringing somebody, Chris Bassett back who hasn't pitched in a while. I don't know if that's the play either. But something fishy is going on, and there's been a lot of rumblings lately around it. And the fact that he won't tell us who's starting is interesting. Now, we will know by probably this afternoon or tonight that it'll probably be, the most likely outcome here is Eric Lauer. Do they push Kevin Gausman on short rest to pitch? This is your season, essentially, right? And if you were to push him on short rest, that would give Trey Savage on regular rest Friday. Because, of course, there is an off day tomorrow if the Jays lose today, which hopefully they don't. But if they do, there's an off day. And then, of course, on Friday, you could then start Trey Savage, still have your bullpen good to go, and maybe use somebody else as well. So it is interesting. Let me know down below what you guys would do. I don't love the idea of a bullpen game. The bullpen's been terrible over the past couple games. They've been crushing our bullpen. If you're throwing Eric Lauer in what I'm considering, again, everything is a must win at this point, then what are you doing, right? And that's the question I have. It is the way they went about it. They were hoping to get the Game 3 win with Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber looked real bad. And I want to kind of transition now into some other things. Now, this series obviously took a massive turn. They were up 6-1. Some people were celebrating. Arash Madani tweeted the series is over, all these different things. The bullpen gave it up. And a lot of people are calling out John Schneider for taking out Shane Bieber early. And I want to make it very clear. It was absolutely the right call. I said it in live time with my friends. I said it in the moment. I clearly, he was getting shelled, right? And you obviously wish Shane Bieber would have had a better game, would have had his ace stuff. Look at this. He had a 12 BBE, but 9 hard hits, 3 of which were barrels. He was getting barreled up consistently. It was lucky he only allowed 2 earned runs. You had to bring in the bullpen. And I was very adamant in yesterday's video prior to yesterday's game. In the video in the morning, basically saying, okay, you have to, excuse me, you have to play to win, right? Like, you don't want to play trying to save your bullpen for today's game in a hypothetical loss yesterday. Yes, they lost the game, but you had to use your bullpen. Louis Verland, he got beat, and it was a pretty good pitch. 100 miles per hour, 3 inches inside. He gets absolutely crushed, turned on by Judge. Unbelievable hit. Pulling Bieber was the right call, right? It was absolutely the right call. There was no doubt about it. And John Schneider even spoke out on Aaron Judge and said, hopefully he gets a bad night's sleep and has bad food tonight or something like that. Give him credit, man. That was a ridiculous swing. It was. And we knew this was coming. We knew Judge was, like Johnny was saying over on Twitter and things like that, saying that he was a ticking time bomb, right? He is a ticking time bomb. Johnny over in Gate 14. He was a ticking time bomb. But at the same time, we knew the Yankees offense was going to snap back at some point. And Bieber was the most likely guy for them to do that to because of the fact that his stuff isn't electric. He relies on command. That being said, the bullpen didn't help. Louis Verland struggled. Mason Fluharty was pretty good. And the defense was atrocious yesterday. And if we end up losing, I'm not going to say this series, but the reason we lost the game yesterday was mainly because of the defense, right? Your team gives you 6. Bieber struggled. You can put it on Bieber as well. If he got one shutdown inning, things would have changed. IKF, who's in for defense only, struggles, gives up an error. Okay. Addison Berger. He also got probably the most crucial error of the season so far. I mean, absolutely. Schneider should probably call him off. It's not on Schneider, though. It's on Berger. He called it. He made the play, and then he missed the play, right? He called it for he didn't make the play. He tried to make the play. He missed the play. You can argue about, the lineup decisions. Maybe putting in, if Miles Straw's in there, you have Miles Straw on left. You have somebody else on right. Maybe that's not Santander, who also had a horrible error, but he also had a single that drove in 2. Regardless, this team needs to figure it out, and they need to figure it out fast. And things have taken a shocking turn very, very quickly as it pertains to who's starting, how the team is looking, and many more things. And it's all led to big decisions ahead of tonight's game. And I think for the first time, we're going to see some pretty big shakeups. You can see here, Springer has to play right or left field the rest of the way. Santander DH, no more IKF ever again. And Schneider, Lucas need to be in the lineup over Berger. And it's like uncomfortable conversation, but Berger's looked awful in the field and awful at the plate. Lucas has looked great at the plate. Davis looked great at the plate. It's a very good point. And I would much prefer Springer at this point in the field over Santander. The reason he hasn't been is because he has been vocal to the club about liking to play DH. He feels more comfortable. That is Springer. But at this point, you got to do what's best for the team. I don't think George Springer would have any complaints playing the field if they asked him to do that. John Schneider, the front office, right? He's a baseball genius, right? Maybe not a baseball genius, but all these guys in the MLB, like, they're very smart people for the most part, smart baseball players at least. And I think they'll be fine with going there. It's going to be rough, folks. And you can see here, Bieber not being able to hold a massive lead was a problem. Embarrassing defense was a problem. Having to use the bullpen because Bieber couldn't generate whiffs was a problem. That is what gave them the loss tonight, not the offense, not the bullpen decisions. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are on that. I tend to agree. I'm not calling it on John Schneider whatsoever. I think he managed it fine. And Judge, for the first time, I think in MLB history, pulled this exact pitch, which was 100 miles per hour, 3 inches or more in. Regardless, Louis Verland had some comments. He said he made a good pitch look like a terrible pitch. And guess what? He did, and the Yankees made a good team. The Jays looked like a terrible team yesterday because of the collapse. But luckily, with this, the way baseball works with the series format, they play today, take care of business, and guess what, folks? Get the win, move on. But it's going to be rough with the bullpen game potentially, but keep an eye out for some weird stuff happening, whether that be a Phantom Ilson, whether that be Kevin Gausman going on a short rest. I don't think the Jays are quite done yet. I think they have something up their sleeve. But you guys have been an absolute piece of the sport. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Cheers.